Hello, I am Fatima Hamidi, a graduate STM communication designer at the Writing Center here at the Colorado School of Mines. In this video, I shall be discussing the topic of presenting an argument in science using logos and ethos. Kenneth Burke, the great rhetorician, writes, "Wherever there is persuasion, there is rhetoric, and wherever there is meaning, there is persuasion." Scientific research, often seen as the pinnacle of objectivity and rationality, relies on more than just facts and data to convey its findings. As Kenneth Burke famously pointed out, the presentation of scientific findings requires persuasion. Even the most rational arguments must be presented in a way that convinces the readers of their validity. This necessity for persuasion, particularly in scientific research, hinge on two critical rhetoric tools: logos, the logic of the argument, and ethos, the credibility of the author. This handout will explore how these rhetorical strategies shape scientific arguments, ensuring that the audience not only understands but also accepts the conclusions drawn from the research. The role of persuasion in scientific research. Scientific research is inherently social activity centered on answering challenging questions and presenting solutions that are open to scrutiny. When researchers propose a solution or theory, it is accepted by the scientific community until a more compelling proposition emerges. This process implies that scientific knowledge is provisional, contingent on the best available explanations. Consequently, scientists must be adept at constructing arguments that persuade their audience to accept the findings. Whether determining widely accepted theories or presenting novel perspectives, researchers need to convince their peers through clear, persuasive arguments. As Aristotle outlined in his study of rhetoric, persuasion involves three primary appeals: ethos, the credibility of the author; logos, the logic of the argument; and pathos, an appeal to the emotions of the audience. While pathos plays a more limited role in scientific discourse, logos and ethos are essential for convincing the audience of a researcher's conclusions, establishing the author's credibility. In scientific research, ethos refers to credibility and trustworthiness of the author. The reader must be convinced that the researcher is not only knowledgeable but also rigorous and ethical in his or her approach. Ethos is established in several ways, including the researcher's expertise, the integrity of the researcher methods, and the difference the researcher shows to the work of other scholars. The most obvious way to establish ethos is through the author's qualifications and experience. In scientific writing, credentials such as advanced degrees, professional titles, and affiliations with reputable institutions signal that the author has the authority to speak on the subject. Additionally, the rigor of the research methods used plays a significant role in enhancing credibility. Researchers who carefully justify their methodologies, present well-reasoned arguments, and transparently report the data demonstrate their commitment to scientific integrity, further strengthen their ethos. For example, a researcher studying climate change who has published numerous peer-reviewed papers and conducted large-scale empirical studies is more likely to persuade his or her audience than someone without a robust scientific background. Moreover, the peer review process itself serves as a form of ethos, as it indicates that other experts in the field have evaluated and validated the research before publication. Beyond credentials and expertise, ethos can also be established through rhetorical techniques such as similitude and difference. Similitude appeals to the shared values and experiences between the author and the reader, fostering a sense of common purpose. For instance, using inclusive pronouns like we can help create a sense of solidarity between the researcher and the scientific community. By positioning themselves as part of a collective effort to advance knowledge, researchers can enhance their ethos and strengthen the bond with the audience. Difference, on the other hand, involves acknowledging the contributions of other scholars in a respectful manner. By recognizing the work of others and building on that body of work, researchers demonstrate humility and respect for the broader scientific community. For example, a researcher might write, "The rigorous work of Garcia and others provides a solid foundation for understanding this phenomenon, and we aim to extend their findings by exploring additional variables." This not only signals respect, but also positions the researcher as part of a collaborative, ongoing conversation within the field. Logos, the logic of the argument. While ethos is essential for establishing credibility, logos is at the heart of any scientific argument. Logos refers to the logical structure of the argument, ensuring that the conclusions drawn are supported by sound reasoning and empirical evidence. Scientific research must be clear, logical, and coherent, allowing readers to follow the argument step by step. In scientific writing, logos manifest through the careful organization of ideas and the presentation of data in a logical sequence. Researchers must ensure that their findings logically connect to their conclusions. This requires avoiding common logical fallacies that could undermine the strength of the argument. For example, researchers should be cautious of making overgeneralized claims based on limited data, a fallacy known as hasty generalization. Instead, they should present evidence that directly supports their conclusions and outline the logical steps taken to arrive at those conclusions. To help readers follow the progression of an argument, researchers often use signposting, the use of specific words and phrases that guide the reader through the manuscript. Words like first, next, therefore, and alternatively help clarify the structure of the argument and indicate how different points are connected. For example, in the introduction to scientific paper, a researcher might write, "This study addresses the following research questions. 1. How do PFAS compounds leach from impacted concrete? 2. What role does biochar play in reducing leaching? 3. How can recycled materials be effectively used in new concrete formulations?" This signposting, the use of numbers, gives the reader a clear map of how the argument will unfold. However, it is crucial that signposts are used correctly. Misusing a signpost, such as using alternatively when however is appropriate, can confuse the reader and weaken the argument's logos. Precision in signposting ensures that the reader can follow the logical development of the argument, ultimately supporting the researcher's conclusion. The interplay between logos and ethos. Logos and ethos are mutually reinforcing in scientific writing. Every reasoned argument, logos, gains persuasive power when the author is perceived as credible, ethos, and the author's credibility is enhanced when his or her argument is logically sound. For instance, a researcher studying the leaching of PFAS from construction materials might present a wealth of empirical data supporting the conclusions, logos, while also drawing on his or her intensive experience in environmental science to bolster credibility, ethos. In this sense, the success of a scientific argument depends on the balance between logos and ethos. An argument that is logically sound but lacks credibility may not persuade the audience, just as a credible author who presents a weak argument may fail to convince their peers. Together, logos and ethos ensure that the research is not only logical but also trustworthy, allowing the audience to accept the findings and incorporate these findings into the broader body of scientific knowledge. Key takeaway. In scientific research, persuasion is essential for conveying findings and convincing the audience to accept new knowledge. Through the combined use of logos and ethos, researchers can construct compelling arguments that are both logical and credible. Logos ensures that the argument is rooted in clear reasoning and evidence, while ethos establishes the author's authority and trustworthiness. Together, these rhetorical tools enable scientists to engage their audience, challenging existing perspectives, and contribute meaningfully to the advancement of knowledge. As Aristotle recognized centuries ago, the art of persuasion is not just for politicians or orators. It is a vital skill for researchers striving to make an impact in their fields. Thank you so much. I hope this helps, and see you again.